affects his digestion.
You know there's something you should know, so I'm gonna tell you so. Don't sweat it, forget it, enjoy the show.
Working all day, now it's time to unwind. Kick back, relax, take a load off your mind.
Oh geez, my time has come. Titanic, the legend goes on. As you may know, I've been reviewing animated films for quite a long time. In fact, in the case of this subject, I already made a few videos about the other infamous animated Titanic movies like The Legend of the Titanic, and its sequel that is somehow even more insane, In Search of the Titanic, also known as Tentacolino.
A bit to the right. Get a better aim. That's it, good.
So I've been fortunate enough to have dodged The Legend Goes On, where I never had to give it my full attention. That is, until now. But even if I never fully talked about it before, I am absolutely aware of its existence. I remember back during the dawn of internet video reviews, or generally around the 2010s, The Legend Goes On was among the worst animated features that just about every online movie critic talked about alongside Food Fight and Ratatouille. Especially when it had a notorious reputation of not only dumbing down the tragic disaster of the Titanic into a Disney-like kids movie, but to also have a musical number that features a rapping dog. So if you've been on the internet long enough, you most likely know what this movie is and have seen at least one reviewer talk about the horrors that are within. But I'm not coming in just to do the same thing that most did and talk about everything wrong with this movie. I'm adding a twist to this and discuss about something a little different. You see, not many people know that there are two versions of this film. There's the 70-minute mess that is considered the standard, but what I will be analyzing is the uncut version, which is noted to stay true with what the filmmakers intended to create, and about 12 minutes longer. It was tricky to find this one, and I did have to call for help. By the way, big thanks to the diva of musical help for sending me the one she had. But then I saw on YouTube that it was not only fully uploaded to watch for free, but also in HD. Sure, there is a difference of a few minutes in length, but from what I found, they're both pretty much the same because the HD one only goes at a faster speed and are enough to have me experience this nightmare. So now that I'm about to see a different version of this shipwreck, and I don't mean the boat itself, how low does this movie sink? Or in my case, will I find that the rapping dog is worse than the giant octopus and the crazy conspiracy mouse? Let's find out. The story. I'll start by noting that there are some strong parallels between The Legend Goes On and The Legend of the Titanic. I'd even say that these similarities make these films almost identical. On top of being animated films made for kids that are obvious ripoffs of James Cameron's Titanic, they have a cast that features talking mice and other out-of-place animals. Their titles are about the same, where they both feature The Legend and Titanic. They were released close to each other, where The Legend Goes On came out just over a year after the other one, and they were both primarily made in Italy. I could say that I don't have to review this movie, considering that I already did one of The Legend of the Titanic, and they're both just about the same, but that's probably too obvious that I'm just making excuses to get myself out of this.
Please don't make fun of me. I don't belong in your world.
But upon watching The Legend Goes On, that's when the differences become more noticeable. In the case of the story, the film is completely driven by its cast of characters and their personal issues while on the Titanic. Of course, there's the main romance plot that copies the 1997 movie, but now the genders are swapped with a poor girl named Angelica and a rich boy named William. But then there's also the mice and the animals who are throwing their own party while also trying to search for Angelica's lost locket. Then there's two bumbling thieves who try and fail to steal whatever they could find for their boss. Then there's this detective who's trying to catch the thieves red-handed. Then there's two older people who pretend to be wealthy in the hopes to marry someone rich but instead find each other. And then there's this French bachelor who's trying to seduce a hot singer.
I must apologize for my despicable behavior on the pier, but I could not help myself.
She's not going to fall for that old line, I hope.
And those are just from the characters who actually do something. I have yet to go through the ones who serve little to no purpose for the picture. As you could tell from my long list, there are just way too many side plots simultaneously going on, to the point that even the movie itself has a very difficult time keeping track on all of them, constantly juggling from one after another that is next to impossible to follow. But what makes that even worse is that, because it has to handle a large quantity of narratives, the movie has no time to give them any meaning or provide an explanation to why the viewer should care about their situations. As much as it may try to give the main cast a purpose, like Angelica wanting to find her long-lost mother, or William wanting to find true love, the film has no time to give those goals any significance, and those plot lines often get lost as it keeps jumping around to the other characters and whatever wacky situations that they get themselves into. Which reminds me, as a film made for younger audiences, of course, this was made to be more comedic. So much so that I'd argue that there is more comedy here than there is story. And maybe that wouldn't be such an issue if the feature could actually be funny. It's bad enough that the plot often gets sidelined just so the film could have its fair share of slapstick and mischief. But the gags themselves are so terribly executed that they deliver more groans and pain than laughs, as the characters just fumble around because they get outsmarted by the animals. All they do is just drag the feature to make it feel longer than it is and be a distraction from its own thinly veiled story. Because even the movie has limits and cannot be a horrible Titanic ripoff and a cringy cartoon at the same time. But considering that I am discussing about the uncut version, some may wonder what is the difference outside of being longer. Honestly, there aren't any major deviations. Sure, it has a different plot and some scenes were rearranged, but that doesn't change how both versions are completely hopeless. The only noteworthy difference is actually in regards to the music with both the score and the songs. And it should be a surprise to no one that they also suck.
We've done it again.
On top of the soundtrack mostly sounding like they came from the demo track of a digital piano, the songs are terrible, regardless of which version you're watching. In fact, they're so bad that even the movie is self-aware and would rather not be a musical by not giving that aspect much attention while they're on. The only ones that get noticed are the songs from the animals, such as a number with the Mexican mice that's actually in Spanish. And then you have the rapping dog, where in the uncut version, he doesn't sing Party Time. Instead, the film plays this.
Better stop it if you're breathing fists here. It's time for reason, cause instead of being a hero, you might become a zero. It's no confusion, no illusion. Out on the sea, so amusing. A special trip, so we best get started. Hardy, party, party, hardy. You, help me. You, me, you, me. Yes.
It's a different song, and I'll give it that it explains why all the animals have this animation where they frequently go, but the quality is just about the same as Party Time. It's not really a rap song, but rather what rural white boomers think a rap song is. Also, it doesn't change the fact that this is a rap number in a kids movie about the Titanic, and that alone is part of why I was rooting for the iceberg here. I feel like because it's copying James Cameron's Titanic, the movie believes that it could be as epic as Titanic, and tries to do so many things at once to make its own kid-friendly version, like a huge cast of people and animals with their own plot lines, cartoon comedy, musical numbers, and more. But because it doesn't have the talent to handle them well, let alone handle them together, the only thing that's epic about this is how it failed at everything, leaving the narrative to be virtually impossible to follow, and calling it basic with a few elements it has would be generous. History may say that the tragedy started when the ship hit the iceberg, but when it comes to the story of The Legend Goes On, the disaster started after the title appeared. The animation. At first glance, without any context that this is about the Titanic, it doesn't look terrible. It's not great by any means, but from a visual standpoint, it's not unwatchable. Obviously, the designs are meant to emulate the Disney style, especially to capture that familiarity of the fairy tale-like romance it wants to capture with Angelica and William, along with the whimsy of friendly animals helping the protagonists in any way they can as they go through their own little obstacles.
Who are you?
Come on, Angelica. Don't dawdle.
Look, Mother.
However, it is worth noting that the style does become inconsistent the more characters that come on board the ship. There are some who can maintain their semi-realistic look, but others end up leaning more into the cartoony side to varying degrees. In some cases, it's not bad that they went in a bit of that direction, especially for some of the animals, but others can go a little too hard on that style to the point of looking out of place, as if they were meant for a completely different movie. Maybe this can be considered a nitpick, and some wouldn't consider that a serious problem, but with the large amount of characters that are featured here, I do notice when it's not being careful with the designs, and there can be some drastic variations instead of having everyone come together to make one unifying look. I'll also add that when it comes to the Titanic itself, it doesn't feel anything special or have something that makes this feel like the famous ship. Yes, it does have some CG shots of the boat that it occasionally cuts to, and it did recreate the famous staircase that's shown in a few scenes, but other than that, the backgrounds are not immersive as they feel generic, and most of them are either in a room that all feel the same, regardless of class, the dining room, the hallway, the storage with the animals, and the outside decks. More often than not, it can feel like a fancy hotel than an actual early 1900s cruise ship. Also, don't ask for it to get close to the walls. Otherwise, you'll see how the paintings in the decor is quite amateurish, or you may suspect that this is set in a video game with how pixelated the ship can be.
What's the matter, Captain? Something wrong?
The Baltic has sighted icebergs in the area. Says to keep a lookout.
But to go back to the factor of how some things look different than others, maybe it's debatable at best with the designs. However, this is among the biggest problems when it comes to the character animation. Once they start moving, it's no longer a matter of style. It's more like negligent directing. Look, I understand that animation is generally a team effort, and many animators have to come together to make a big project such as a movie. But do you know what's also important? Consistency! For the works of the animators to feel like they're all making the same picture. And with this issue, the animation can feel like it's going all over the place, almost as if you could point out which animator did what scene. And trust me, you don't have to be an animation fan to see that it can be distractingly noticeable throughout the experience. Sometimes the colors go flat, sometimes they can go heavy with the shadowing regardless of location. Sometimes the movements are quite limited, sometimes they look like they need extra revisions. Sometimes it could bite more than it could chew, and sometimes it can be shockingly good.
Well, he's going to wait for me in vain at the reception tonight. He asked me to go with him, but I've nothing to wear, and my stepsisters would never lend me a suitable dress. Never mind. At least they'll have a good time.
This wouldn't be a problem at all if this were a reanimated project made by fans, but this is clearly not trying to show off the artist's different styles. It's just lazy filmmaking where it doesn't feel like it's from a team who was actually working together. And if you think that's bad, it gets even worse when you see the amount of recycling it does. There are times when it could reuse some animations to have a character speak. I mean, I'm almost convinced that the rapping dog refuses to talk unless he uses this specific animation.
Well, from now on, try not to strike out on your own without checking with me first.
Tell me, do you know? Do you really know? Do you know it, yes or no? Is it yes or is it no?
Dalmatians and the Spaniel have access to the first-class... what? Yes, while you're on your rounds, keep an eye out for a locket lost by a very sweet person who's kind to animals. It means a lot to her.
But this can take it to the next level where it doesn't just recycle bits and clips. It could just replay whole scenes to fill the time. It's one thing to have a flashback for the character to quickly look back at what happened, but this movie developed a habit of replaying previous scenes for the sake of padding. And when it comes to the romance of the two leads, it played back their moments not once, but twice. Meaning that in one viewing, you will watch certain scenes up to 3 times, as if you need a constant reminder of how their love went.
Blood, you're in my blood, my blood. So let's start this ride of love.
Is this some of the worst animation I've seen? Honestly, no. At best, there can be some parts and some designs that are actually pretty decent. However, I cannot look past the inconsistencies of the style and the quality, along with reusing entire scenes, where it overall makes the film look unpolished at best and completely rushed and unfinished at worst. The animation is possibly the best aspect of the feature, but that doesn't mean that I'm calling it good. The characters. If I have to point out what are the biggest differences between The Legend Goes On and The Legend of the Titanic, I'll say that there are a couple of things that one did better than the other. First, The Legend Goes On does take the tragic of the sinking more seriously than The Legend of the Titanic, which isn't a high bar to pass because at least there's no giant octopus saving the ship or make insane revisionisms to say that no one died.
The truth of the matter is that those missing persons were never really missing. It's all a misunderstanding.
But when it comes to the second, The Legend of the Titanic may have a bit of the upper hand. You see, when it comes to their characters, the best that I could say about them is that at least they're mostly original. Yes, their existence alone is completely psychotic, but at least they are uniquely crafted for that movie. The Legend Goes On the other hand, did not stop its ripoff tactics at James Cameron's Titanic. Almost the entire cast consists of counterfeits of characters from other movies and pop culture, and they are laughably obvious to who they're trying to be. In fact, let's start this off with the leading lady, Angelica, who is the film's Cinderella story. And by that, I mean that she is straight up Disney's Cinderella as the poorly treated servant to her evil stepmother and 2 ugly stepsisters who also have their own Lucifer.
Pick up those bits of broken china at once. Then mend and iron our clothes so we can attend the reception to welcome us aboard. In any case, you can't come. You've nothing to wear. No one's going to lend you anything.
But what she wants is for one day to reunite with her biological mother, with only her locket to remember her by. What significance does it make to her personality or to the feature? Honestly, nothing. The film doesn't have time to establish any of that, and at best, it's just an excuse to make the lost locket feel important and make it a big deal for the animals to retrieve it.
It was a locket that her long-lost mother gave her. Then, when I was eating the bread, I heard her say that she can't go to parties because she has nothing to wear. Sad.
But eventually, she falls in love with a first-class man, William, accompanied by his Angelica-looking nanny who just so happens to have a long-lost daughter. Gee, I wonder which direction they're taking with that one. But back to the pretty boy, technically, he's just a simple love interest. But considering how the movie could only have a handful of scenes for them to bond, not only does their romance feel rushed, but this also makes William feel increasingly creepy with how suspiciously quick he falls for her. Seriously, he gave me the same vibes I got from Hans from Frozen.
I was too busy looking for someone. Someone with unforgettable eyes. Now that I've found her,
I'm not going to let her get away from me, I guess.
For another notable movie that this film loves to copy from, it's 101 Dalmatians. Because not only does this have its own Cruella de Vil, complete with Horace and Jasper trying to steal whatever they could find, it also has a Pongo and Perdita who are a couple and expecting puppies.
I'm at your disposal, old friend. I'm afraid Kate here is out of the picture, though. She's about to present me with some airs.
With the other people, there's Winnie, who is a counterfeit Molly Brown, Jeremy, a broke banker, Sam, a Sherlock Holmes detective who goes around wearing disguises, and Gaston, who spends his time trying to flirt with the singer, but doesn't have the charm to make it work because no one fails to get the ladies like Gaston.
Mais faites attention, quoi!
As for the animals, while not all of them are rip-offs, their presence don't make the experience better, such as the rat who harasses this dumb chef, the stereotypical Mexican mice as if this movie isn't offensive enough, a thieving magpie, a bunch of Aristocats geese, and of course, the notorious DOG. But the most prominent animals of the feature are none other than Maxie and his parents, the unapologetic knockoffs of An American Tail. Because if you're gonna already have some anthropomorphic mice immigrating to New York, then you might as well just call the kid Fievel.
Why you have let him bring all his toys is a big puzzle, Pavel.
Gretchen, Gretchen. He promised to carry them himself.
But then there is one character whom, for me, stands out from all the rest. And that is the singer that Gaston always chases after, Molly. She may not be much in terms of her personality, but she's the only one who caught my attention with her sexy appearance. Sure, Angelica is also really cute, but Molly is meant to be the film's bombshell. And every time she shows up, I do get a bit of joy with my two brain cells going,
We want to rate it! We want to rate it!
And yes, I know I sound stupid right now, but keep in mind that I'm talking about Titanic, The Legend Goes On. If being horny is the only way for me to get through this thing, then so be it. However, there is a catch with the singer. I may be going into spoilers here, but out of all the characters in the film, Molly is the only one confirmed to be dead!
And the Dalmatians and their children were taken in by William and Angelica after having lost their beloved Mistress Molly. After having lost their beloved Mistress Molly.
After having lost their beloved Mistress Molly.
I think the movie also hinted that Winnie and Jeremy sank with the ship, but that's okay because nobody cares about them. But this movie went out of its way during the epilogue to say that almost everyone has a new life after the Titanic disaster, while Molly is straight up gone. And we don't see her making that decision either. At the most, she was just singing with the band while the ship was going down, so I guess she was that loyal to her contract. But I am still in shock that out of all the annoying and stupid characters that they made for this feature, they gotta axe off the hottest one who didn't do anything wrong, leaving her to drown in the ocean that is as blue as my balls.
What does he mean by that?
Oh, nothing at all. Je suis sûr.
And this is not even to mention about that awful English dub. The kind where on top of the excruciating acting, the cast has to constantly fill the silence with annoying sounds and some of the worst use of sound effects in an animated film that only shows up when no one asks for it. The characters add these extra layers of indignity to this picture. This isn't just a Titanic ripoff, it also steals from a variety of other films in a cheap attempt to capture that Disney tone. It's already terrible enough that there's too many of them at once that try to have the movie's attention, but their contributions only make the experience worse. And even if there's one that can make this not so bad, they'll end up eliminated because the movie wants to make sure that you come out with absolutely no happiness. Yes, they're a bunch of blatant knockoffs, but that's only part of why they're terrible. It's one thing to always hear about other people on the internet talking about how terrible a movie is, but actually watching that movie to see firsthand how bad it is a whole different experience. Titanic: The Legend Goes On is not only one of the worst animated features ever made, but it is also one of the most shameless with how it rips off from a variety of different movies, especially the 1997 film. The only positive thing I could say about this is that there are those rare occasions where the animation can be okay. But the rest of the film is left in a more wrecked state than the ship itself. The story is a complete mess with too many side plots that makes this next to impossible to follow. The comedy is embarrassing. The songs are all failures. The animation is weirdly inconsistent, but generally awful. The cast is overcrowded. The English dub is absolutely annoying. And it's too dependent on making cheap counterfeit versions of works that are better to watch than this. I'll say now that, compared to The Legend of the Titanic, I don't know which is worse, because they're both ungodly horrible that you'll end up in pain either way. And it doesn't even matter if you choose to watch the uncut or regular version, because the addition of party time and making it slightly shorter will not make much of a difference. I wouldn't recommend this to anyone who's looking for a genuinely enjoyable movie, but if your curiosity gets the best of you and you want to see what this is all about, then I won't stop you. But know that this is really as bad as people say it is. By the way, if you had a good time with this review, then give this a like and subscribe to my channel. Trust me, I usually talk about animated films that are much better and much more pleasant than this. I don't think it's a surprise to anyone that this easily gets the Animat seal of garbage. Because after watching that film, my mind felt as crushed as the Ocean Gate submarine. Hey guys, this is Animat, and I want to start things off by giving out a huge thanks to the diva of musical hell for helping me out with this review by sending me the uncut version of Titanic: The Legend Goes On. And yes, even though I did end up using a different uncut version, or at least a different video that is the uncut version of the movie, I will say that what she did send me with the one that she had, considering that she did make a few videos about the uncut version of Titanic: The Legend Goes On, that was still a help in terms of the production of this review. So once again, big thanks to the diva of musical hell. All right, but anyways, back onto The Legend Goes On. Now I could finally say that I did it. I have finally completed the unholy trilogy, or the unholy trinity, whatever you may call, of these terrible Italian animated features that rip off the Titanic. I have watched, I have discussed, I have reviewed all three of these nasty films, including The Legend of the Titanic, In Search of the Titanic, aka Tentacolino, and finally, Titanic, The Legend Goes On. And just like I said in my review, honestly, I don't know if I could really compare which is worse between The Legend Goes On and The Legend of the Titanic, considering that both of these features are just absolutely terrible. Honestly, it would require me to go and fully analyze both of these movies at the same time to go and check into their little details to see which one did it better and which one did it worse. But considering that, well, with all this, I just went through one of them and already I just had enough of it. That is honestly a project that is too insane for me to get into. I know I can be known to be quite crazy, but even something like that is a little bit extreme for me, or at least a little extreme for me right now. So my best answer that I could say is that it doesn't matter. Both of these films are terrible. And in the case of The Legend Goes On, oh boy, was that rough to get through. But the good news is now I am finally done. I am finally over with The Legend Goes On and these stupid animated Titanic movies. And it is now time for me to move on to a Patreon request. And this time around, I will be going through a request from Joseph DeCina. So I would like to go and start things off by saying that if you would like to be like Joseph and you want to go and support my work and get some amazing rewards, including but not limited to seeing my videos before anyone else, as well as seeing my videos uncut, like a more extended version than what you would get on YouTube, then all you have to do is go to patreon.com/animat. But at the same time, if you would like to suggest an animated film you would like me to review and that I would put onto the animation hat, then all you have to do is just write me an email at animatsreviews@gmail.com. So with that said, what is it that Joseph asked me to go and review? Is it something better than Titanic, The Legend Goes On? Well, the good news with that is yes. But then again, you could pretty much say that whenever Joseph would go and ask me, it will 99.9% be better than what I just watched with The Legend Goes On. But in this case here, however, this is one that honestly, I'm pretty excited to look into, because this isn't just a movie that is well known to be great, but this is also well known to be quite historical. Because even though technically this is not the first animated feature ever, this is the movie that is well known to be the one that started it all.